The quest for the Holy Grail is one of the most intriguing and enduring legends in Western history. For centuries, this mystical relic has captured the imagination of kings, knights, artists, and adventurers. But what do we really know about its origins and meaning? Does the Holy Grail exist beyond the realms of fiction and myth? Let's embark on a journey through time and culture to unravel the mysteries surrounding this legendary artifact. The concept of the Holy Grail as we know it today has its roots in medieval European literature, specifically in the Arthurian legends. However, its history is much more complex and multifaceted than it might seem at first glance. To truly understand the evolution of this myth, we must go back in time and examine the various traditions that contributed to its formation. The first mentions of a sacred object with mystical powers date back to ancient Celtic legends. In these narratives, we find references to magical cauldrons capable of providing infinite food or resurrecting the dead. The Cauldron of Dagda, for example, was an Irish mythological artifact that never emptied and had the power to grant all wishes. These Celtic legends, passed down orally for generations, provided fertile ground for the later development of the concept of the Grail. As Christianity spread throughout Europe, these ancient pagan traditions began to merge with elements of the new faith. It is in this context that the first explicit literary mention of the Holy Grail appears, in the poem Perceval or the Tale of the Grail, written by Chrétien de Troyes at the end of the 12th century. In this work, the Grail is described as a golden dish or bowl, used to serve a host to a sick king. Interestingly, in this early text, the object does not yet have the Christian connotations that would later become inseparable from its legend. It was Robert de Boron, in the early 13th century, who established the connection between the Grail and the story of Jesus Christ. In his poem Joseph of Arimathea, Boron presents the Grail as the chalice used by Jesus at the Last Supper and later used by Joseph of Arimathea to collect Christ's blood during the crucifixion. This association profoundly transformed the meaning of the Grail, elevating it from a simple magical object to a sacred relic of immense spiritual power. From this point on, the Holy Grail became a central element in the Arthurian legends. In the various versions that followed, the Grail was often portrayed as the ultimate goal of the quest of the Knights of the Round Table. This quest, known as the quest for the Holy Grail, symbolized a spiritual journey, a search for moral perfection and communion with the divine. It is interesting to note how the concept of the Grail evolved over time, reflecting the changing religious and cultural sensibilities of medieval Europe. In some versions, the Grail was depicted as a chalice, in others as a precious stone, and in still others as an object of undefined nature. This fluidity in its representation contributed to the mystery and fascination surrounding it. The legend of the Holy Grail was not confined to medieval literature. Over the centuries, it has continued to inspire artists, writers, and thinkers. In the 19th century, for example, there was a renewed interest in the myth, particularly among Romantic poets and painters. Works such as Alfred Tennyson's The Idylls of the King and the paintings of Edward Burne-Jones helped to revitalize and reinterpret the legend for a modern audience. In the 20th century, the Holy Grail found a new medium, cinema. Films such as John Boorman's Excalibur and Steven Spielberg's Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade brought the legend to the screen, each offering its own interpretation of the myth. These film adaptations not only kept interest in the Grail alive, but also introduced new elements and perspectives to the legend. But what about the claims that the Holy Grail is a real object, hidden somewhere in the world? Throughout history, numerous relics have been proclaimed to be the true Grail. One of the most famous is the Holy Chalice of Valencia, an agate cup kept in the Cathedral of Valencia, Spain. Although its provenance is uncertain, some believe that this chalice may be the original one used at the Last Supper. Another notable candidate is the Cup of Antioch, a silver chalice discovered in Syria in the late 19th century. When it was found, many proclaimed it to be the true Holy Grail. However, later analyses dated the object to the 6th century, making it impossible to directly link it to Jesus Christ. There are also theories that suggest that the Grail is not a physical object, but rather a concept or secret knowledge. Some esoteric interpretations view the Grail as a symbol of spiritual enlightenment or divine knowledge. Other, more controversial theories link the Grail to supposed bloodlines descending from Jesus Christ, an idea that gained popularity with the book The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail and later with Dan Brown's best-selling book The Da Vinci Code. It is important to note that, Historically and archaeologically, there is no concrete evidence for the existence of a single object that can be unequivocally identified as the Holy Grail. The search for a physical relic that matches the legend will likely remain fruitless. However, this does not diminish the power and importance of the Grail as a cultural and spiritual symbol. The true value of the Holy Grail lies not in its physical existence, but in its symbolic significance and the impact it has had on Western culture. As a metaphor, the Grail represents the human quest for meaning, perfection, and transcendence. It is a symbol of the spiritual journey, the search for divine knowledge, and the aspiration for moral purity. In psychology, Carl Jung saw the Holy Grail as a powerful archetype of the collective unconscious, representing the quest for wholeness and psychic integration. For Jung, the quest for the Grail symbolized the individual's journey toward personal fulfillment and self-understanding. From a literary perspective, the Grail legend has been an inexhaustible source of inspiration. It embodies universal themes of quest, redemption, sacrifice, and spiritual transformation. These themes continue to resonate with modern readers and viewers, partly explaining the legend's enduring popularity. The influence of the Holy Grail extends far beyond literature and film. In popular culture, the term Holy Grail is often used to describe any object of supreme pursuit or ultimate goal. Whether in science, business, or the arts, the idea of a Holy Grail continues to capture people's imagination, symbolizing the pursuit of excellence and ultimate achievement. It is fascinating to observe how a legend that originated in medieval Europe continues to exert such an influence on our contemporary culture. It leads us to reflect on the enduring power of myths and symbols. Why do certain stories persist through the centuries, while others are forgotten? What is it about the legend of the Holy Grail that continues to captivate us? Perhaps the answer lies in the universality of its message. The quest for the Grail is, at its core, a quest for something greater than ourselves. It is a journey of self-discovery, of overcoming obstacles, and of personal growth. In an increasingly complex and challenging world, this narrative of quest and transformation continues to offer hope and inspiration. Furthermore, the inherent ambiguity of the Grail legend allows for multiple interpretations and reinterpretations. Each era and culture can project their own meanings and values onto the myth, keeping it relevant and alive. This interpretative flexibility is one of the reasons why the Holy Grail continues to fascinate scholars, artists, and the general public. As we examine the history of the Holy Grail, we are also led to consider the role of legends and myths in shaping our cultural identity. These narratives, even when not based on historical fact, have the power to shape our understanding of the world and of ourselves. They offer a symbolic language through which we can explore fundamental questions of human existence. It is interesting to note how the Grail legend has evolved over time, incorporating elements from different religious and cultural traditions. This evolution reflects the changes in the societies that transmitted it, offering a fascinating case study in how myths adapt and transform in response to historical and cultural changes. From an academic perspective, the study of the Holy Grail spans many disciplines, including history, literature, religion, anthropology, and psychology. This interdisciplinarity demonstrates the richness and complexity of the subject, offering multiple perspectives for its analysis and interpretation. For historians, the Grail legend offers valuable insights into the mindset and values of medieval Europe. By studying how the legend was recorded and transmitted, we can learn a great deal about the social structures, religious beliefs, and cultural practices of that time. Scholars of literature, in turn, find in the Grail a rich field of study in narrative, symbolism, and intertextuality. The evolution of the legend through different texts and authors provides a fascinating study of how stories develop and change over time. For anthropologists and scholars of religion, the Holy Grail represents an interesting example of religious and cultural syncretism. The fusion of pagan and Christian elements in the legend illustrates how different traditions can blend and give rise to new systems of beliefs and symbols. From a psychological perspective, as mentioned earlier, the Grail can be seen as a powerful symbol of the collective unconscious. Its quest represents the individual's journey toward individuation and personal fulfillment, central themes in Jungian psychology. It is also important to consider the impact of the Holy Grail legend on contemporary popular culture. In addition to the aforementioned literary and cinematic adaptations, the Grail has inspired video games, music, and even conspiracy theories. This continued presence in pop culture demonstrates the myth's ability to reinvent itself and remain relevant in different cultural contexts. In the field of art, the Holy Grail has been a recurring theme throughout the centuries. From medieval illuminated manuscripts to 19th century Pre-Raphaelite paintings, to modern and contemporary interpretations, the Grail continues to inspire visual artists. Each representation offers a new perspective on the myth, reflecting the aesthetic and philosophical concerns of its time. An interesting aspect to consider is how the Grail legend has been used in different political and ideological contexts throughout history. During the Crusades, for example, the search for the Grail was sometimes associated with the conquest of Jerusalem, serving as a spiritual justification for military endeavors. More recently, nationalist interpretations of the legend have been used to promote narratives of cultural identity and ethnic superiority. It is crucial to approach these appropriations with a critical eye, recognizing how myths and symbols can be manipulated to serve political and ideological agendas. At the same time, it is important to appreciate how the interpretive flexibility of the Grail myth has allowed it to transcend cultural and temporal boundaries, speaking to people of different backgrounds and beliefs. As we reflect on the real story of the Holy Grail, we are led to question the very concept of historical truth when it comes to legends and myths. While we can trace the literary and cultural evolution of the legend, the truth of the Grail lies not in its physical existence, but in its symbolic meaning and cultural impact. The quest for the Holy Grail, whether understood literally or metaphorically, continues to inspire and intrigue. It reminds us of our ongoing search for meaning, transcendence, and personal fulfillment. In an increasingly secular and technological world, the persistence of this medieval legend speaks to the fundamental human need for narratives that offer meaning and purpose. As we move into the 21st century, the legend of the Holy Grail will likely continue to evolve and find new forms of expression. We may see interpretations that incorporate contemporary themes such as the quest for environmental sustainability or the advancement of artificial intelligence. The enduring power of the myth lies in its ability to adapt and speak to the concerns of each new generation. In conclusion, the true story of the Holy Grail is a complex and multifaceted narrative that transcends the simple quest for a physical object. It is a story of cultural evolution, religious syncretism, spiritual aspirations, and the search for the meaning of human existence. The Grail remains a powerful symbol of our collective search for something greater than ourselves, a reminder that even in an increasingly disenchanted world, we still yearn for mystery and the transcendent. The journey we undertake today, exploring the history and meaning of the Holy Grail, is itself a form of quest. By delving into the depths of this enduring myth, we not only gain a richer understanding of our cultural heritage, but we are also invited to reflect on our own personal searches for meaning and fulfillment. The Holy Grail, at its core, challenges us to look beyond the superficial, to seek the deeper truth that lies behind the symbols and stories we have inherited. It reminds us that the journey is as important as the destination, that the quest for knowledge and understanding is a fundamental part of the human experience. As we continue our own search for the Grail, whatever that may be in our individual lives, we can find inspiration and guidance in this ancient legend. It teaches us about perseverance, about the importance of maintaining faith in the face of adversity, and about the transformative power of spiritual seeking. The story of the Holy Grail, with all its richness and complexity, remains a testament to the enduring power of myth to shape our understanding of the world and ourselves. It stands as an open invitation for each of us to embark on our own journey of discovery, a reminder that, in the end, the true search is always for something within ourselves. Thus, the true story of the Holy Grail is not just a narrative of the past, but a living myth that continues to unfold in the present and that will undoubtedly continue to inspire and intrigue future generations. It is a story that, in its search for ultimate truth, constantly reminds us of the beauty and mystery that permeate our existence.